Voice is back, right? The voice is back. And I want to get to like a recap of the 2020 PGA show with the very last video that I actually did first when I was down there. 10, what's the ACCRA demo day? And what they do is they prepare, a meeting and telling us what's coming new. And if you guys haven't figured it out yet, and well, there's a video right up here. True Temper, which is now called True Sports, has bought ACCRA Golf. And so far, nothing's changed, just like they said, because they deal with the custom people, where True Temper is more larger order type stuff. That there's not new innovative product between the two. So what's been happening is the trade-off has been very, very good in that the ACCRA guys have been able to lean on the just huge amount of R&D and the expansive testing that can be done that is True Temper, and True Temper can lean on some of the custom work that is ACCRA. It's a symbiotic relationship so far. So what was new? Here's now all that, right? Well, ACCRA, who has done nothing but graphite since day one, has introduced a steel shaft with the idea of staying green, right? A steel shaft, and there it is. All right, and you get to see the little it's called Eco Satin, right? Eco Satin. What is Eco Satin? That is the coating that makes up this shaft. Okay, that is the coating. Now, when you see in regular steel shafts, the shiny chrome, it's nickel plating, right? And nickel plating can be very hazardous if you don't treat it right. It's very, very hazardous with the things that you've got to do. So this is a eco-friendly or eco satin type of shaft, and it's very water-based. So they've tried to introduce something new. Now, the other part of it, coating, great, right? Is that going to help me out? Well, what they've done is, if you take a look here real quick, you'll see it's stepped. And it's stepped from about here to about, here, right? And it's stepped here, and then it gets stepless here. So what we talked about earlier. So what did they do? Well, they basically took a dynamic gold to right about here, and then took a Project X to right about here. That's saying something. So what is that going to be? Well, at first blush, it appears it's for the stronger golfer. They're only going to be offered in taper tip right now, and only because it's they're testing out the market, right? And the lion's share of their sales are in taper tip. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to stay in taper tip. So I've put one together. We're going to test it out here going forward. That's a whole nother video. But there's a steel shaft. The big deal is steel shaft from ACCRA and eco-friendly coatings. Something new and coming out is the new label paint job for the I-Series shaft. Okay, now the I-Series is the stable of the ACCRA brand. It is, there's all kinds of weights, all kinds of irons, hybrids, fairways, drivers, just all kinds. And what will happen is, I believe that the lettering on the outside will change color with some of the weights or some of the models. And finally, at the top end, the Tour or the TZ models. They introduced TZ last year, and it got into the bag of some pros. Very, very nice shaft. They introduced a stiffer shaft with more torque, basically. There's two models, and the Tz6 really kind of took off, and they were asking what you could do with the shaft, and they came out with a Tz6 Counterbalance. All right, a Tz6 Counterbalance. Now, what does that mean? Well, what that means is, when you have a shaft, somewhere in here there's a balance point, and typically, maybe right at center somewhere. Well, this one is a little bit more closer towards the handle, right? A little more closer here. So that means when you go to weight this thing, you're going to feel more weight in the hands. And that's not a bad thing. Some of the best shafts that we've ever had to fit with have been counterbalanced. Now, what does that mean completely? When you're building to spec, that means that your head weights are going to be lighter, and that's by design because the balance of the shaft has moved towards the butt. There's a whole chicken and the egg thing going on where, well, if you do that and he wants a swing weight of, and it's counterbalance, that means you got to put more weight in it. Well, then you just destroyed the whole idea of counterbalance, because now you're just adding more weight. So that's an argument that's going on that will be between club makers forever. But leave it to say that here, that if you get tested, the whole idea is that it is counterbalance, because certain swingers, certain golfers like the weight here, not out here. And that's what it's for. Now I'm telling you all this because the very first video that we did was the Lee and Jim show. If you go back, we've done it 2 or 3 years. And what he does, he introduces some of the stuff that we talk about. Basically, it's a really cool English accent, and Lee's a really good guy, and he's going to talk to us about the Tz6. He's going to go a little bit further into detail of why it came out to what it was. So let's go take it to Lee, and we're back in Florida, Orange Tree Country Club. 2020, the beginning of all things golf, the ACCRA demo day, and as usual for the last going on 3 years, the Jim and Lee show, right? Jim and Lee. So I met Lee 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we golfed together, and it was quite the international group, which I thought was basically fantastic. Lee is quite the player, to be sure.
Not sure about that.
And he has become the distributor for ACCRA in the UK.
And Europe.
And now
we
Europe.
handle all of it, yeah.
There you go. So if you're playing ACCRA and you're playing in Europe, and I do have a lot of guys from Australia and Ireland watching, you're probably getting it from Lee right here. And if you have any questions, please call him, because
by all means,
he's a fountain of knowledge. So today, the ACCRA is releasing a lot of new product, new changes, you know, and it's been a big year for ACCRA.
Yeah, 2020 is going to be a very exciting year for it.
And the beginning is right here we have for Lee in the Tz series, which was the Tour Z, what do we call it?
Correct, yeah, the Tz series has been around for a while now.
And we now have something that basically near and dear to my heart, I keep asking for it, is a counterbalance. So we're going to have Lee describe what's going on with the counterbalance.
Okay, so basically what happened last year at the PGA show, we brought in a new product for us, which was called the Tz6. And ultimately that shaft had, you know, it's been a great shaft for us, and it had the most success on tour we've ever had. And it was a real brave thing to do, because ultimately what we went out on tour with a, if you like, a responsive tip golf shaft, which for many guys at that level do not like that. They like stability in the tip. So to go responsive, it was pretty brave. And the way that we done it was, although the tip was responsive, we lowered the torque on that shaft as well. So what it done, it gave guys great feel, but also great stability. So if you like, after the success for that, how'd you build on it? And that was where the counterbalanced idea came from. We all know, Jim, that guys like drivers, or they need drivers all different lengths. Some people like more head weight, some people don't. There's all these things going on in the industry. And yeah, that's one of the reasons that we all go to fitters to make sure that we get our clubs right. The counterbalance version allows you to play a driver longer, and it also allows you to play a driver shorter if you need to, if you want more weight in the head. And if you like, the challenge for us was, how do we create a new shaft building on the success of the Tz6 that still feels the same? That was the tough thing. And to do that, we had to do a couple of things to it. So ultimately, the first thing to say is that the shaft is going to feel and play very similar to the original Tz6. Okay, you're not going to see massive differences there. But what happens with a counterbalance shaft is you're adding weight underneath the grip. Okay, so if you like, the grip end's getting heavier. So that's going to make it play ever so slightly stiffer. If you do that, then you're moving what's called the balance point of the golf shaft. So the balance point is literally just that. It's just this area here. So you're moving that up, when you make this grip end a little heavier. And then ultimately, if you like, if you're going to play the shaft maybe a little bit longer, add a little bit more weight, we have to keep that head stable. So to do that, we do actually just firm up the tip section a fraction. It's not massive, but it's enough. But the problem is, when you make the tip section really stiff, it can actually start to lose a little bit of feel to the shaft. So in order to get that feel back, we add a little bit of torque, a little bit more than the original, and that keeps the feel the same. So for somebody who's got a Tz6, wants to play something a bit longer or up their head weight, the counterbalance version, the CB, works perfect.
Now when they talk about adding torque is kind of a unique feature in a shaft. Because let's just say you get a number, let's call it 2.5. When you're talking about adding torque, you're talking about making the number bigger. And when you make the number bigger, the torque gets wider, we'll say. It ranges wider. When you take torque away, it makes it smaller. So in a lot of cases for, we'll say, the average to better than average golfer, when you get in that 2.5, 2.9, which is about where hunting, it makes it a better shaft to be sure.
Yeah.
Now, there'll be a lot of discussion on counterbalancing, on whether or not you got counterbalancing so you can add more weight, or did you get counterbalancing so you could keep it light?
Yeah.
And that is purely all in the fit, right? In the fit, because everybody's got a different swing.
Absolutely.
Lee swings certainly better than I do, and I have a different way of swinging. I prefer a counterbalance shaft because I like weight in the hands, not necessarily in the head. Counterbalance, right? And that's where that comes from. So what it does is it offers another wider range for guys like us, to be able to fit guys like you. And if you got any more questions, whether you're in the UK or Europe, give Lee a call. If you got any questions about the shaft, put it in the show notes below, and if I don't know it, I will ask, and I will put it down in there for you. Okay, so it was really nice, and I barely had my voice, but it was working really, really well. And Lee's a good guy. Lee's a good friend. And again, if you guys are watching this and you're in the UK or Europe, check out Lee if you want any of the True Sports, or if you want the ACCRA product. All right, again, if you guys have any questions, just put it down into the show notes. And we're going to be doing some more of these review videos. I got a whole bunch in the pipe, and we're getting ready to go. So again, let's see your scores. Go low.